This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who, at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman, otherwise known as Special Defense Counsel with Larry Klayman, because these days there is so much government tyranny, there's so much corruption at the Justice Department that I'm not just doing the prosecutorial work at Freedom Watch, but I'm also serving as criminal defense counsel for a number of individuals involved in the Mueller investigations, most particularly Jerome Corsi. And we thank God that Dr. Corsi has not been indicted. He told the truth. It's clear the special prosecutor knows that at this point in time, and we're moving forward. But what is also moving forward is an effort to impeach the president. It surely is coming. It's just a matter of days, if not weeks away. You have a runaway House of Representatives. Sitting on top of that is the very evil Speaker, Nancy Pelosi. With her evil colleagues, I might add, Gerald Nadler of the House Judiciary Committee, Adam Schiff of the House Intel Committee, others out there that have their talons sharpened wanting to take this president down. And that's why we need your very strong support at Freedom Watch, because we're in the front lines. We're, in effect, the president's lawyers. His lawyers go on TV. Yeah, that's great. Fox News, other cable networks. But other than that, they're not fighting back, and they have to fight back legally. It was just today that I read an article by Judge Napolitano, Andrew Napolitano of Fox News, who's actually turned very anti-Trump. Anytime he has a chance to say something negative about Trump, he takes it. I'm very disappointed in Judge Napolitano. He wasn't always that way, and I wonder whether or not he expected to be named Attorney General or something else. Maybe he's mad, maybe he's reacting. But he made a prediction that the president, if he doesn't speak up, is going to quickly be impeached, and it'll be the end of him, convicted in the Senate. Well, speaking up is one thing. The president does speak up. He can probably speak up in a better way. I think Twitter is not the way to do it. He needs to address the nation. That's fine. Judge Napolitano has a point. But on the other hand, he needs to fight back legally. You can't keep taking punches. You can't be dragged along to the guillotines. I mean, this is not Louis XV and Marie Antoinette. These are people even worse than that in the U.S. Congress, the Democrats that want to bring him down. And, of course, you've got grand jury investigations, which are continuing. There is no hope that a report will end the matter. Even if there is a report by Robert Mueller, it'll be an interim report in all likelihood. He'll still continue to investigate. There are other trials out there. So the president needs to take legal action. He's been illegally surveilled. I've recommended in the past that he bring lawsuits, as I brought, for people like Jerome Corsi, my client, for illegal surveillance, that he challenged the authority of the special counsel in the courts. And he could take it all the way to the Supreme Court. If it's the president of the United States, surely they'll take that up, because Robert Mueller has gone far beyond his authority. I think he should challenge the activities of Congress. He needs to get people up there that back him. The Republicans in the House of Representatives, they talk a good game, just a couple of them, Jim Jordan and others, but they don't do much of anything. It's get your face on Fox News and raise money. Devin Nunes, they say good things. It sounds real good when you hear them on Hannity and on other shows, but you know what? We see what's been happening. The president continues to be dragged along. And now they don't even control the House of Representatives. We can thank former Speaker Paul Ryan for that, because He never was a fan of Trump. He was a never Trumper. And many of these people that are out there today who claim to support Donald Trump are doing so because that helps them raise money. It helps them be reelected. Even some of the people in the conservative media who were never pro-Trump. Mark Levin, I like a lot of stuff Mark says, but he was anti-Trump. He tried to defeat Trump. You got Glenn Beck, who tried to defeat Trump. You've got others out there that have done the same thing. So what the president needs are true friends, and the president needs to understand that I am his friend, that Freedom Watch is his friend, you are his friend, and we're not just his friends, we're sticking our neck out to get the job done. And that's why we need your support. Go to freedomwatchusa.org, because you see, there's been all this talk about the fact that, well, we have a Russian collusion investigation, we have an obstruction of justice investigation. What about Hillary Clinton? What about James Comey? What about the Lovebirds, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page? What about Rod Rosenstein? What about Bruce Orr? What about Bill Clinton? What about Hillary Clinton? You know, the president's being vilified because he made hush money payments, as they call it, to Stormy Daniels, the porno star, and another woman. Well, it's a whole lot better than killing people. I mean, it was legal to begin with, number one. If he had an affair with these women, I don't approve of it, obviously. The president probably regrets it. I don't know whether he did or he didn't. But it wasn't a crime. It wasn't a campaign finance violation. Hillary Clinton, I know, committed major campaign finance violations. My client, Peter Paul, came forward with proof of that. $2 million of hard money campaign contributions to get Hillary Clinton elected to the U.S. Senate. Nothing ever happened. Bruce Orr, long before it was known how he was a Clinton proponent, who buried investigations with regard to Hillary Clinton during the Obama administration and went after Donald Trump with regard to the Steele dossier and other types of things that were guaranteed, that he thought, to bring the president down. He suppressed early investigations in the 2000s when I was at Judicial Watch over Hillary Clinton's illegal campaign financing. But here's the irony here. The president pays so-called hush money. Hillary and Bill Clinton, they simply offed people. 80 people died in and around that administration. Anybody that would testify against them and anybody that would embarrass them. They terrorized the women. I represented nearly all the women, from Jennifer Flowers to Dolly Kyle Browning to Paula Jones to Kathleen Willey to Juanita Broderick. These people were investigated. They were harassed. Their children were threatened. They were audited by the IRS. Well, you know what? The president didn't do any harm with so-called hush money. But yet these people walk off scot-free. So it's Freedom Watch that this month is finally starting its citizens' grand juries. And we're going to hold these people accountable. We're going to put the evidence in front of a grand jury. We're going to indict them. We're going to try them. We're going to convict them. We're going to sentence them. And then we're going to mete out the sentences peacefully and legally. The American people have the right to do that. Justice Antonin Scalia in 1992, as I've said many times, in a case United States versus Williams, said the grand jury belongs to the American people. In the Old West, the American people meted out justice. We didn't have a Justice Department until July 1st of 1870. We meted it out ourselves. Sure, we're going to ask Trump to enforce the convictions and the sentences. But if he does not, and he's getting bad advice, and he may not, Giuliani and Sekulow, they're along for the ride. They're cashing in at the bank. They're good people. But you know what? They don't have the guts to do what needs to be done. We at Freedom Watch have the guts. So please support us at freedomwatchusa.org. And then we also need your support for something else. You know, we're going to have Pat Boone on, that legendary actor, singer, conservative Christian, my good friend, who has been a strong supporter of the state of Israel. He's a Christian, but he also considers himself to be a Jew. And I have a very good friend named Marty Getz, who's actually a Jewish gospel singer, who sings songs. I urge you to find him on the internet. He has a voice a lot like Josh Groban. In fact, Josh Groban, I think, copied his style. But he has a particular song. It's called Psalm Enchanted Evening, Psalm. And the refrain is, Jesus was the truest Jew that ever lived. Well, the land of Israel belongs to Jews and Christians. It does not belong to Muslims. They have Mecca. You know, they have Saudi Arabia. They have Jordan. They have Egypt. They have Libya. But we don't say that they shouldn't live there in peace. There are Israeli citizens who are Arabic, and as long as they abide by the law and are peaceful, they're welcome in the land of Zion as well. But there are these very hateful congresswomen who have just been elected. Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, a radical Somalian trained in jihadi ways, who has engaged in a number of anti-Semitic statements just in the last week or so. You have Congresswoman Tlaib, another Muslim, another Israel hater. And then you have Congresswoman Cortez, who's Hispanic, but they're all banding together. You see all these radicals on the left are banding together. It doesn't matter whether they're radical Muslim, radical Latino, radical feminist, atheist, pro-illegal immigrant. They're all coming together. And their goal is to destroy this country, to destroy the vision of our founding fathers, and to build it up in their socialist image. In the case of Omar and Tlaib, they want Sharia law. They don't want American law. They want Sharia law. You know, it's interesting. In Israel, in family law matters, Arabs can either choose Israeli law or Sharia law. They have a dual system. The overwhelming majority of women who go through divorces or custody proceedings choose the Israeli common law over Sharia law. And that tells you something. They're choosing, in effect, the vision of our founding fathers. And that's why this anti-Semitism is so hateful. I'm going to talk about that in the second segment as well, because the Jewish left, regrettably, is furthering it, and they're not most Jews. And I want people to understand that, because they are also furthering anti-Semitism inadvertently. I'm going to be right back shortly with that second segment, but until then, go to our website, freedomwatchusa.org. Contribute to our cause. We are your Justice Department. We're fearless. We do what we think is right. And listen closely to our third segment of this show with Pat Boone and understand why the future of Israel is tied to the future of this country. That doesn't mean that you have dual loyalties, but Jews and Christians have to protect both sacred places. I'll be right back.
Fearless.
Disclaimer, he's crazy, he's racist, he's out to kill the Democrats.
Dangerous.
I don't care, he uses the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I was just talking about these very hateful, radical leftist new congresswomen. And it's coincidental that they're all women. I'm not picking on women, believe me. But these three are taking the lead right now. In fact, they're taking the Democratic Party even away from the Nancy Pelosi's of that party, who is radical left in her own right, but not completely lunatic like these three, Omar, Tlaib, and Cortez. But I'll tell you what's at fault here. You know, there was an expression that came up after the Holocaust among Jews in Israel and throughout the world when Israel was created in 1948. By the way, in 1949, a Muslim country was created by the UN, Pakistan. They had their country. And if they don't want to live in Israel, they can go to Pakistan. That's a Palestinian, Arabic, Muslim country. But the phrase that came to fore was never again. Never again will we allow a Holocaust to occur. Never again will Jews and Christians sit back and watch what happened. And to some extent, what happened in Nazi Germany with German Jews is they felt more German than Jewish. They couldn't understand that they were being put on boxcars and sent off to concentration camps. A lot of them didn't even know where they were going. In the United States, Franklin Roosevelt, who was revered for some unknown reason by Jewish people, including my grandparents, who thought he was a great man. They later voted for Reagan. They changed their point of view when they understood what was going on. Roosevelt knew what was going on with the concentration camps. He didn't want to waste American bombs on stopping the Holocaust. He sent Jews back that came on a boat to Miami, back to Germany, where they were exterminated. This guy was not a friend of the Jewish people. And if you go to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., you'll see that it's not complimentary to Franklin D. Roosevelt, our president during World War II. He did some good things in World War II, but that was not one of them. That was extremely bad. But Jews need to stand up for themselves. We all need to stand up for ourselves. Christians need to stand up for themselves. If you don't stand up for yourself, who's going to stand up for you? I've watched 7 films in the last few weeks of Rocky, of Sylvester Stallone. He's brilliant. And he says, you must be true to your own creed, so to speak. No pun intended, because the last movies were called Creed 1 and Creed 2, the son of Apollo Creed, who won the world championship in boxing in the movies. But we, Jews and Christians, we have to do it for ourselves. And I've talked a lot about the Jewish left. Who is the Jewish left? Started with Karl Marx, Leon Trotsky, Saul Alinsky in modern day times, and others. These are confused Jewish people. They're self-hating Jews. They're the large minority of Jews, but they're activists and they're radicals. And the rest of the Jewish people and Christians, we must oppose them peacefully and legally. But they're actually supporters of people like Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar was elected in a Minnesota district in large part with leftist Jewish money up there. They thought she was going to be our friend. Well, she's no friend of the Jewish people, and neither is Congressman Tlaib. They're Manchurian candidates. They worked their way into the Congress, and now you see what their plan is: to deconstruct this country, to take Jews down, and Christians, much in the way at Louis Farrakhan. And I'm sure they're admirers of him as well. And then Cortez, who's Latino, she says, okay, I got a band with my sisters here because they're going to support me. I'll support them. This is not a principled position. So I have started a subpart of Freedom Watch called Coalition of the Jewish Right. Coalition of the Jewish Right. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. Contribute to our cause. It's not just for Jews, it's for Christians. But I want the world to know that Jewish people are not the radical Jewish left, ones that you see on CNN and MSNBC and writing for the New York Times, Jennifer Rubin, who's really a hateful person, writing for the Washington Post. This is not the Jewish people. They are, in fact, the enemies of the Jewish people. The Jewish people stand side by side with Christians to bring about spirituality, and whether you believe in Jesus or not, and I do believe in Jesus, I'm a Jewish Christian, we are brothers. Judaism is the statute, Christianity are the regulations. We are one people. And consequently, I want you to listen carefully what Pat Boone's going to say in the next segment, because this is a great man who understands that without our faith in God, we will cease to exist as a people. It was John Adams, our second American president, great founding father, that said, without ethics, morality, and religion, we will have no lasting liberty. I'll be right back with Pat Boone. Until then, go to our website, contribute to our cause, sign up for our Justice League. I'll be right back with Pat Boone.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm here with my very good friend, a legendary entertainer, superlative singer and actor, a conservative and a Christian, Pat Boone. I'm pleased to have him on our show today. You know, it's interesting. Pat told me years ago that he wrote the lyrics to the famous song Exodus. That's one of my favorite movies with Paul Newman. He's a big supporter of Israel. And I wanted to get Pat's thoughts after he introduces himself on what's been going on now on Capitol Hill with this congresswoman from Minnesota, Ilhan Omar, that's made a number of anti-Semitic remarks, because Pat's a tremendous supporter of Israel. And then I want to get into the Bundy saga, because we're considering doing a movie or screenplay And I would like Pat very much to be the actor that plays Cliven Bundy. He's played Western parts before. He can play any part, and he would be great in that. So I want to talk about those two things, and I want to introduce our listeners, not that he needs any introduction, he's well known, to Pat Boone, an American hero.
Hey, Larry, you left out one appellation about me, but fellow gym rat. Because I see you at the gym. You know, we should let people know that we're both in excellent shape, and we work out at the gym, and I see you on all the machines and lifting weights, and I know that you're in great condition, and you can say the same thing about me, and I will even confess.
You are. You are in great shape.
I feel myself a lot younger than I actually am, and people say, how do you manage to look younger than I know you are? And I said, well, I've been asked it so many times, three things: lots of milk, lots of exercise, and a clean conscience. Well, the milk, that just has to do with healthy diet, and I say I've been on the white stuff for years. I've switched to low-fat, though, recently. And exercise, that's self-explanatory. The clean conscience, they say, you mean you have a clean? I said, yeah, not because it doesn't get dirty sometimes, but I know where to go to have my conscience cleaned. And if you can get rid of guilt and fear, and that's where our faith comes in, then you can live a much healthier life and longer too. So those are my secrets. I can only attribute the fact that I look like I may be no older than 78 when I'm 84.
No, you look younger than that, Pat. Believe me.
I'm just joking, because I work with some of the older guys there, and they don't believe. They find it hard to believe the amount of weights that I use or lift or whatever, and the exercises that I do. But I've always done it, and I ride my bike, and I swim, and I eat right, and I've never been a drinker. I smoke a pipe once in a while just because I like the smell of it. But other than that, you know, I'm a living testament to just living a healthy life. Anyway,
well,
not
Christian, and that gives you a certain radiance and vitality.
Well,
I mean, I've seen
get
it.
My conscience clean. That's it. Yeah. But now, so yeah, with this lady you want to talk about? I say lady. I try to be respectful, but the one that has been talking about the Benjamins and all of that business. What's her name? Omar, is it? Is that her name?
Yeah, Ilham Omar, and you are an authority. You've been to Israel so many times. You've gotten awards there from Prime Minister Netanyahu. Mm-hmm. And like I said, that's one of my favorite songs, if not my favorite song, Exodus. I mean, it moves me so much, and I'm so proud to know you that you wrote the lyrics for that. So, you know, for her to be attacking Israel and Jews, and, you know, when I see you in the gym, you wear a high. And with a cross, you know, and you consider yourself one of the tribes. So I'm a Jewish Christian.
People,
you know that.
The people say, "Are you Jewish?" Some of the other fellows, you know, when that's all I have on is my necklace, and they in the steam room where they say, "You're Jewish?" I said, "Yeah." Pat Boone, you're Jewish? I said, yeah, by adoption. I was adopted in my faith into the family of God's chosen people. My Messiah is Jesus, a Jew, and the people, including rabbis in his day, believed that he fulfilled all the requirements and all the prophecies about the Messiah. They were looking for another King David, but no, he came as King of the universe, not just the King of Israel, but he is the Messiah. So the Bible tells me I am adopted into the family of God's chosen people. It's not a Gentile thing. It's a totally Jewish thing, but we Gentiles get in on it if we receive the Jewish Messiah, whose name, by the way, Yeshua in Hebrew means salvation. And a guy just made me aware recently that throughout the Old Testament, there's like 14 dozen times where Jesus' name appears, but it's always translated salvation, not Jesus. But the name Jesus is the word, the Hebrew word for salvation. So his name is scattered throughout the whole Old Testament, Psalms, Proverbs, prophecies everywhere. And it's just not recognized because that's not what people have been historically looking for. So, anyway, that's my background and why I wrote the words, "This land is mine, God gave this land to me," sounding proprietary, because I am part of God's chosen people to whom the land was promised, and it is theirs to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and his descendants, not the Philistines, which is the word where Palestine, that word Palestine comes from Philistine. And it's the same thing. It's people who settled in the desert that had been Israel when Israel was no more for a while. It was reinstated in 1948, but there'd been nomads and settlers who called themselves Palestinians then, which is the same as calling themselves Philistines. And there was never a government of Palestine. It was just people that were nomads, and they lived in tents and sometimes small settlements. But when the Balfour, I know you didn't mean to get into this history, the Balfour Declaration declared Israel a sovereign nation again. And in 1948, it became exactly that. And it's been the state of Israel. It's promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, not to the descendants of Esau or Ishmael. And they were given lots of other land and 12 tribes, but theirs kind of dissipated, although they still exist. And this woman is descended from either Ishmael or Esau, not from Abraham or Isaac or Jacob.
Well, that's where it comes from. This land is our land. I mean, we are, in effect, Zionists. There's nothing wrong with the word Zionist. It means that it belongs to Jews and Christians.
It's a tiny little piece of land compared to Arab lands that number in the millions and millions of acres. They own, the Arabs and the descendants of Ishmael and Esau own millions and millions of acres all over the Middle East. Little, by comparison, tiny little Israel is just a handful in God's hands around the Sea of Galilee, but it is the land He gave to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So I feel like I'm part of that, and when I wrote the words, "Until I die, this land is mine," and it became the second Jewish national anthem. And the lyrics, Larry, I think I've told you, I wrote those words on the back of a Christmas card, and now that card is on display on the wall of the righteous Gentile at Yad Vashem. Shaya ben Yehuda, who is one of the main executives of that Holocaust Museum, asking with tears in his eyes if he could have whatever I wrote those words on. And I said, "Yes, you can, but I need to let you know I wrote them on the back of a Christmas card." He said, "Great." He said, "Because that's so fitting, because we know our most ardent supporters in the world are evangelical Christians." So now that's where it is. By official ceremony, my lyrics on the back of a Christmas card are on the wall of the righteous Gentile, along with Oscar Schindler, Corrie ten Boom, and others who saved countless Jewish lives during the Holocaust, the German Holocaust, the Nazi Holocaust, I should say.
Well, that's really fantastic, Pat. You are a true Christian, and you are Jewish by heritage as well. I'm a Jewish.
Yeah.
And
we're brothers.
So therefore, the words of Ilham Oham this week, Omar, to us, and it's very, don't want to had to refer to Islamophobia and every other phobia in the world, because they don't want to face the reality that this land is our land. And I want to transition from that to the Bundy case, because our listeners know all about that case, and I want you to play Cliven Bundy. I want to do a movie. How brave this family is. And in fact, it's the same theme. And that's an American way of life.
Yeah.
And I want to get your thoughts on that.
Is my voice breaking up? Yours is breaking up on this end, but are you hearing me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you clearly, Pat.
Okay, well, good. I'll just keep talking then. I hope that a bigger name actor would be drawn to this role, which I think will be a blockbuster film. I mean, I'm happy to do it if I were chosen. I identify with Bundy so much because he's a man who took a stand and is currently, it's a current story. It's in today's news, and you've written a great treatment, and it should be a screenplay. But it is the issues of today. A man saying, hey, this land is mine. We grazed our cattle on what was not owned by anybody. They call government land, and our cattle grazing freely. And then they come in and try to put us in jail and take the land away and not let us use land that nobody else is using for anything. And besides, it's not, the government had no right to seize land that properly belongs to the state, the people of Nevada. And so they were right. And, you know, there's an old phrase that might makes right. No, it doesn't. But right can make might. And when you're in the right on something and you stand your ground, you can win. Because right, I believe, will prevail. And that's what this story is about. And I would be happy to be any part of the film. And as you know, I'm submitting the treatment to people that could, if they like. They have the ability to fund and produce and distribute the film. So I just think it needs to be done. I think it's much more timely than the film that apparently was up for awards called Vice, in which they did a fairly accurate picture of Dick Cheney. It's not a flattering picture, but then not everything in his life was flattering. But that film is big because it's so current, and it fits some political appetites. But this film is very, very topical, and I think is on the right side of history, the right side of morality. You know, I'm with you on this one.
Well, it's an American story, and this land is our land. It's the American way of life. It's the West. Mm-hmm. When the Bundys were acquitted, as I was telling you yesterday, Pat, when Cliven walked outside of the courthouse after he'd been in prison for 2 years, first in solitary confinement, then in the Heavenly Father, and he saw rain coming down, because for a rancher that ranches in arid desert, that's a good omen. And I believe that
was a great sign from heaven. Yeah, if
you were to play the part, that would be a great omen, because you understand the spirituality of this. I do over 30 times Cliven, and I've gotten to know the family very well. These are people, salt of the earth. They believe in Jesus, they believe in God, and it was God that delivered them from what was in effect bondage to you there.
Right. You know, I think it was Reagan who may have said that our liberties and our freedoms can be lost in one generation if we just simply surrender the rights that we have that are ours by the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and by divine right, because, as Jefferson said, these rights are granted to us by the Creator inalienably. And if we just walk away or through apathy or ignorance give up our freedoms, then they will be taken from us. But the right to own the land, I love do we dare mention your proposed title, or you want to save that?
Well, Tyranny at Bunkerville, We Fought the Law and We Won, or How the West Was Won Again. Those are thoughts that we've had, Pat.
That's the one. That's the one I like. How the West Was Won Again.
I want to take a break here and come back with our next segment. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back, Pat.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
We're back with Pat Boone, my friend. Moving on from the Bundys, we've seen a lot of tyranny lately in our justice system. This is what I do for a living. The entertainment side is something that I want to do because I want to educate the American people, like you do, on good values and where this country needs to go. But I want to get your thoughts on what's been going on with the president, going on with Robert Mueller, going on with Congress, how they're trying to destroy this man, and the ramifications for the American way of life. Because what's happened to the Bundys there's a lot of similarities to what is attempting to be done to the president himself. It's a misuse of our justice system. So what's your take on that?
I've known Donald Trump, our president, for a long time. Not that we were close, but he knew that I was kind of a long-distance friend and supporter when he was being castigated sometimes in magazines as this upstart businessman who was doing brash, big things and bragging about them, and they like to tear somebody like that down. And Esquire magazine wrote a very unflattering piece and lampooned him and so on. So I hadn't met him at the time. I just wrote him a letter saying that I've been reading about your successes. You're a very bright, energetic guy, and I just don't want you to be discouraged when the press that's very envious of your kind of success badmouth you. Just hang on, just keep doing what you're doing. Well, I got a very nice note, appreciative note from him later. We met at Mar-a-Lago. It was a fundraising thing, and we just had a friendly relationship. Well, when he was running for the nomination, he was calling his opponents names. I defended him on Fox Radio and an interview, and I guess it was on TV. It was TV, though. So he called me on the tennis court I was playing to thank me for saying something about him that was good while he was running for the nomination. I said, well, I did say good things, but you may not have heard the whole interview, that I was saying I wished you would quit calling your opponents names because it sounds like a schoolyard kind of ploy. And I'd love somebody to play for you some tapes of Reagan when he was running for his nominations and elections, and he would take his stand very firmly against his opponents, but he also was respectful of the opponent. And people, even if they didn't agree with his position, liked him because of he was obviously a nice man. And I said, and he seemed more presidential than his opponent. And I said, you've got to start seeming and sounding more presidential. I bet you your own wife is telling you that. And he laughed. Well, it didn't change his MO. And I still regret that he doesn't. He feels like he's got to answer. He's a counterpuncher, and sometimes, like counterpunchers, he'll try to beat you to the punch, and in ways that I don't think sound presidential. And he knows that I don't agree with that kind of an approach. But I must say, there was no way he was going to be elected president except by, I think, divine, and that's biblical, divine appointment, because the Bible does say there is no authority but from God, and that we are to honor and to obey those who are in authority over us, because in one example, he doesn't bear the sword in vain. That if you are not a lawbreaker, then you have nothing to fear. But if you break the law and disrespect those in authority over you, then you will have something to fear, because God puts people in power either because they're what we need or maybe what we deserve. And I think in some ways that President Trump is what we need and what we deserve, that we have been getting dirtier and dirtier in our politics, and it's very hard to combat dirt and allegations. We've reached a place where we're making people guilty by accusation, not by proof, but just accusation. They're automatically guilty.
I agree with you, Pat. We've got about 30 seconds here, and I really appreciate your coming on, because these are very, very wise words. And I was telling myself at the time, when all the polls were saying that he was going to lose, I said I could not believe that God would allow Hillary Clinton to be president of the United States, and he came through. I want to thank you for coming on, my good friend, and we'll be back in touch shortly on the Bundy matter and other matters, and I really appreciate everything you do. God bless you. That's the verdict. God will lead us to the promised land, whether it's Bunkerville or whether it's the United States or whether it's the state of Israel. We'll see you next week. Until then, God bless America, and God save America.